Donald Trump has strongly criticized U.S. President Joe Biden for supporting Transgender Day of Visibility. Trump says Biden's support of the day is an assault on Christianity. The U.S. President has on the 31st of March proclaimed the Transgender Day of Visibility. And joining us is Steve Letsike, Access Chapter 2 Executive Director. Steve, appreciate your time. How do you respond to the criticism from Trump and Republicans regarding President Biden's proclamation recognizing Transgender Day of Visibility, particularly on Easter Sunday?
No, good afternoon to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika and to yourself. Look, Donald Trump has always been critical and has always been transphobic. He has done it when he was president of the United States of America, and even now as he's running towards elections for that. He's going to use each and every ticket that seems to criticize any incumbent or in office, as long as it helps him to win his political argument whichever way. But really, to be honest, the question should be whether what has President Biden done, in order to join the world that observe Transgender Day of Visibility, which is actually commemorated every year on the 31st of March. Now, whether or not, is it because it's during the Easter holiday, I think that is immaterial. The Easter holiday is often celebrated weekend throughout, and the dates every year does change. I don't think it changes whether there's a day, Transgender Day of Visibility, or there's a land day of the Palestine, or many other days that is commemorated on the said day. The holy period will always be observed by Christians and is respected and embraced by all nations, so that the Christian community can really look at their own faith and worship during this period of Passover. And I think it's quite important that we understand that Donald Trump is using this as a political ticket.
Now, Steve, can you provide insights into the intersectionality of religious beliefs and LGBTQ plus rights, particularly in light of the conflicting perspectives presented by both sides of this narrative?
Yeah, look, I think one thing we have for the longest time, been sold with the idea that it is wrong to be amongst the LGBTI person, and religious fundamentalists have always sold a wrong perspective of, being queer or being trans or being gay for that matter. And we've seen this thrive, that people have been excluded because of their sexual orientation and gender identity. What we've seen over time, it even led to criminalization for that matter. That colonial legacies, colonial laws, the Western phenomena that has spread homophobia and transphobia, and I think we see it's still continuing for that matter, and that has been the biggest problem. Now, when you actually characterize this, and you actually take those who are theologians, who always characterize religion and the principle of religion, even without opening scriptures of the Bible, the Quran, and many other religious written aspects, you actually see that principles of religion always speaks to the image of God, and it speaks to the image of respect, non-judgmental, and embracing love. And what we've seen, that those who actually still continue to spread homophobia and transphobia want to turn the context of scriptures and interpret it to their own aspiration of sinful acts and actually perpetuate violence against LGBTI persons. And these are some of the issues. You take what is happening in Uganda, in Ghana, and in Tanzania. Now, while we respect the sovereignty of countries, you cannot take away what religion has always contextualized justice and reparation for people, that you cannot harm people and who are the image of God. And unfortunately, we have to deal with the impact and the implication of religious fundamentalists. And unfortunately, it comes at the cost of life, which LGBTI people have endured for the longest time. But this is not disconnected. You've asked about the intersectionality. And when you look at even us as Africans, even us as South Africans, when we experience the racial context people of the other color, the white, who thought they are much better than black people, and they used religious text to say the white color is better than the black people. And that liberation was quite important, and it's even now more important to fight for liberation for people and people in equal state. The very same texts were used even to violate women, for that matter. So the intersectional lens of race, sex, of sexual orientation, the nationality, and all these contexts will exist until we actually look at things from an equal and an equity application point of view to really address these colonial legacies and unpack what equality means now and why it exists even in the era of democracy.
Steve, I want to come back to President Joe Biden's proclamation of March 31st as Transgender Day of Visibility. Now, you've indicated that this day has always existed, right? Now, how important or how significant was this proclamation at this particular time? Because it is Easter Sunday for many Christians, and I think that's the point of conflict. If President Joe Biden had made the proclamation tomorrow or the day after, because the day is already in existence. I mean, he didn't have to proclaim it at that particular time. Obviously, he was trying to keep the peace.
Imagine celebrating Freedom Day, which is on the 27th of April in South Africa. Imagine wanting to celebrate or proclaim it on the 28th. Doesn't have a significant instant. The Easter weekend, the dates are not always the same. If you take the calendar of 2023, the dates were different. It was in the beginning or the first week of April. If you take 2025, the dates will be different. But the day of trans visibility is always commemorated on the 31st of March. Imagine proclaiming New Year on the 2nd. I mean, how bizarre is that? So it cannot be a point of contestation. This does not change the Easter holiday. Does it mean LGBTI people or trans persons don't matter because it's Easter holiday? I think we need to really reflect on that. It doesn't mean that
but Steve,
we all went
allow me to put this across.
And celebrated. I think it's quite important.
Allow me to put this across to you. So the issue is not so much the proclamation as much as it is that it is the proclamation that is being announced for a date that is already in existence, right? Now, prior to this conversation, many people didn't know that Transgender Visibility Day existed already, right? So with or without the proclamation, transgender individuals would have recognized March 31st. My point is the timing. What are the implications of the timing, particularly for those that are anti-LGBTQ? How else could it have been handled in your view? Or do you perceive this to be the only way?
I think what President Biden has done was the right thing. The 31st of March is the day, Trans Day of Visibility. You cannot proclaim it any other day because the following day it's something else. It does not change and it does not take away from celebrating, embracing, and worshiping God. Because it's a Christian holiday, it doesn't take away from that. And I want us to understand the principles of why and what is the significance of observing the days that have, for the longest time, been commemorated on those said days. And I'm saying to you again, you cannot celebrate Freedom Day on a different day here in South Africa. So do not expect that trans persons will not find resemblance in that. There's no harm, there's no takeaway, there's no loss, and it doesn't change even the dollar currency if the President Biden has proclaimed and even announced his solidarity on the day. He still observed and he still respected Easter holiday, and it's still the same. In respecting and embracing others. It's not one-sided, and let's not actually try to cause conflict between LGBTI persons and religion. There's no conflict. It's people and systematic homophobia and transphobia that suggest that.
So let's do an assessment, if you will, of the impact of political rhetoric, such as Trump's comments about banning transgender individuals from participating in certain activities on the broader societal attitudes towards LGBTQ plus rights and acceptance?
No doubt. There's always an impact in this, because those who have actually been transphobic and homophobic for that matter, would constantly want to lift this and say, what? Look at this. Actually, this is still causing a problem. LGBTI people wants to take everything and so forth. But forgetting that even last day it was observed and it was not Easter holiday. That rhetoric, the impact of it will always spread to hate, stigma, and discrimination. Transgender persons are actually 49 times higher of even experiencing the very same violence level than any adult of a cisgender or so point. And we have to look at the impact at the cost of life, for that matter. And if we're saying lift what is happening and actually then look at the spread of hate that comes with this. Of course, Donald Trump's words are harmful. He's actually never been a secret in his attempt of that. When he was president, he changed the law, removed transgender people who were in the military, removed health benefits or access to health services. And unfortunately, those are some of the things that when he comes into power, he will continue doing that. And it's happening everywhere else. Anyone that seeks to undermine the human rights of people just by virtue of being human will continuously undermine that, and they will introduce harmful laws, harmful practices, and to an extent, they actually rebate into community acting, killing, and assaulting LGBTI people. And those are the things that we worry of. And we are in touch with our partners in the U.S., LGBT organization, to say, what does it mean? And how do we avoid this? And how do we actually act on this? And of course, we are in a litigious era. I don't think LGBT organizations in the U.S. will allow Donald Trump to continue this. They will go to equality courts and they will exercise their fundamental right. No one is above the law, including Donald Trump himself.
And lastly, what strategy do you propose for fostering understanding and empathy between different communities with conflicting beliefs and values?
We've come a long way. We've come a long way as a world.
Carry on, Steve.
We've come a long way as the world. There's no winner when there's any conflict. And our view has always been that first, if we are able to sit around the table and understand each other's perspective and the history and what has been introduced to actually have people acting in this manner and being very discriminatory and so forth, we can take that. But also, we should not take it in a manner that is only tolerable unless, if at all, we act against that. But what we have always introduced to say, let's sensitize, let's train, let's create awareness, let's raise opportunities where people can unlearn harmful practices. So we always introduce that perspective as Access Chapter 2. Secondly, we say those who act intolerant and they are not showing any remorse of their action must be held accountable. In a country like ours, here in South Africa, we've got a constitution that has been there for the last 28 years, with a democracy that has been there for the last 30 years, that has introduced equality and how we actually need to harness society with a moral fabric. And part of the moral fabric is respect and respect for humanity. And what we have to be doing is that those who are expressing intolerance must be held accountable, because the law is really there for that. You cannot just bypass the law. You must test it. You must exercise it through the judiciary system. But also those who are actually wanting to learn and understand that actually LGBTI persons are human beings that has been violated for so long, but we will stand with LGBTI people and ensure that we build alliance and solidarity so that they too equally so can enjoy those rights. So I think there's a way we can work out things as people, as society, teach and unlearn. We also can learn from other people as well. But where something is harmful, you must expect that people will defend themselves, and we will not take casualty for that.
Steve Letsike, Access Chapter 2 Executive Director, speaking to us on Donald Trump's criticism of US President Joe Biden for supporting Transgender Day of Visibility.